Okay, first thing you should definitely do, don't do something stupid like forget your name. You laugh, it's funny, but it happens. My name is Hefe. Wait, I'm gonna be specific. I don't want to use nicknames. I'm gonna put my name. You should put your full name, your first name, and your last name. I have found if I just say put your name, that's not enough. Some people will just put their first name like they're fucking in third grade, and that shit still flies. No, there's more than one Maria in the fucking world. You're not the only one. Put your first name and last name. Okay? All right, so I'm gonna write down what I had. I'm gonna do my list, so I'm gonna cross them off as I go. I've got CIP for confidence of proportions. I've got CI mu that I want to check. I've got 1P, 1 mu, 2P, 2 mu. They go in a nice little pattern there. Paired. Then we have my goodness of fit. I have my chi-square. Then I have my ANOVA. I'm going to go through them first and see if I can identify which one is which before I do anything. Question 1 says, Motorola wishes to estimate the mean talk time for its V505 camera phone before the battery must be recharged. In a random sample of 35 phones, the mean talk time was 325 minutes with a standard deviation of 31 minutes. StatCrunch generates a 95% confidence interval. I see a confidence interval, and we are talking about a mean. This is my CI mu one. I'm going to write a 1 next to it, just in case I have some conflict later on. And like if there's 2 of them I want to label the same thing, I can go and look at them both and go, which one really fits this better? I'll read the rest of that when I'm actually doing the problem. Number 2. A researcher wants to show whether the acidity of rain, the pH is near Houston, Texas, is significantly different from that near Chicago, Illinois. In a random sample of 12 rain dates in Texas, he found a sample mean of 4.77 with a standard deviation of 0.37. In a random sample of 14 rain dates in Illinois, he obtained a mean pH of 4.51 with a standard deviation of 0.156. StatCrunch gave some values. What type of test was used? Well, I see 2 groups of information. I see information about Houston, Texas, and I see Chicago, Illinois. So this is going to be one of my 2 group tests. And the information it's providing is a sample mean and standard deviation. The paired data requires data. So for it to be a paired, I would need the data, and I don't have it. This looks like my 2 means test. So I'm going to come up here and label that right up here, number 2. ANOVA usually has a table. Chi-square always has a table. Goodness of fit is usually listed as a table, but sometimes it's not. They give you a list and tell you what they list it in words. Goodness of fit has some variation there. Paired, you need the data, and so it's almost always in a table form because you need one to be connected to the other. So paired is always a table. Chi-square is always a table. Table, table. ANOVA is usually a table. And goodness of fit often is a table as well, but not always. It's not a guarantee. All right, I'm going to leave this one where I can still check off the things, and I'm going to switch to the next question. A medical researcher wishes to try 3 different techniques to lower cholesterol levels of patients with high cholesterol. The subjects are randomly selected and assigned to one of three groups. This is going to be one of my last three, because there's three groups. It's either going to be GOF, it's either going to be chi-square, or it's going to be an ANOVA. Those are the only ones that have three or more groups. Group 1 is given medication, Group 2 is given exercise, Group 3 is on a diet. At the end of each week, each subject's cholesterol levels is recorded. The researcher wanted to compare the difference in the means. It tells me means right there. The only test that is 3 or more and has means is ANOVA. This is my ANOVA problem. And so I'm going to put a little 3 next to that and circle it so that if I have a dispute later on, I can clarify shit before I start writing everything out. You guys with me so far? Lupe, how you doing back there? Hopefully good. Number 4, a simple random sample of 320 adults were asked what their favorite ice cream flavor was. Of the 320 adults surveyed, 58 responded that they preferred mint chocolate chip. Test the claim that less than 25% of adults prefer mint chocolate chip. And they give me my values. There's only one group of people and they gave me a percentage. The percentage is just a dead giveaway that this is probably a proportion. And there's only one group. This is my 1P test. I'm gonna come here and write 4 next to 1P. I might cross them out, but I'm not gonna I still want them readable. It makes it a little bit easier to look at. You guys with me? All right, let's check number 5. According to the Insurance Information Institute, the mean expenditure for auto insurance in the United States was $774 in 2002. I see the word mean already. This is probably a means problem. An insurance salesperson believes that the mean expenditure for auto insurance is different now. He obtains a random sample of 35 auto insurance policies, determines the mean expenditure to be $735. I'm only seeing one group mentioned. This has got to be my one means test. They have information about means. They've got an N. They've got a mean expenditure. They've got a standard deviation. These are all red flags that it's a mean, and there's only one group. So my one mu is on number 5. And I'll give that a light cross off. Number 6, nationally, the distribution of weapons used in robberies is shown in the table. So it gives a proportion. The following data represents the weapon of choice in 1,652 robberies on school property, and it gives the frequency of the weapon used. Does the distribution of weapon choices in robberies in school follow the national distribution? Okay, so I see more than 3 groups here. I see there's a gun group, there's a knife group, strong arm, and other. There's 3+ groups, which means I'm either doing goodness of fit or chi-squared or paired. I don't see anything paired here though, so this is not paired. Goodness of fit might be, that looks like goodness of fit is you're seeing if the percentages match what's expected. And that's what looks like what we're doing here. We want to see if it matches. The expected is the national distribution. And we want to see if ours, which is this, that's the national. And we want to see, does this match? That's when they say follow, that's match. This looks like goodness of fit. Chi-square needs a table where you're comparing rows and columns. I don't see rows and columns here, so this is goodness of fit. I'm feeling pretty good about goodness of fit right here. Just by process of elimination. Number 7, an auto dealer decides to enroll salespersons in a training program to help to increase sales. Here are the sales for each salesperson in the month before the program and the month after the program. Before and after, where we have the data for both, for one person before and after, we've got paired data here. This is paired, which means the problem is the paired problem. All I've got left is my proportion confidence interval, my 2 proportions test, and my chi-square. Hopefully the last 3 are like I find them and I don't have like picked wrong somewhere. Number 8, Zoloft is a drug used to treat OCD. In a randomized double-blind clinical trials, 926 patients diagnosed with OCD were randomly divided into 2 groups. I see 2 groups, that's a good sign. This is probably my 2P because that's the only 2 group I have left, but I'm going to keep reading to make sure. Subjects in group 1 received 200 milligrams per day of Zoloft. That's not important, even though there's a number. This is just what that description of one of the groups. The other group is the control group. Of the 553 subjects in the experiment group, 77 experienced dry mouth. This is a proportion thing. That's like my N for group 1 and my X for group 1. This is, and there's 2 of them, 373 and 34. This is definitely my 2P test. This is problem 8. And we're down to 2 left, the confidence interval for proportions and my chi-square test. One of these on the next page probably has a table. This should be really fucking easy at this point. You've only got a couple left. You know what you're looking for, it narrows down. There we go. All right, I'm not even reading the fucking problem. I'm gonna say that's chi-square, and I'm gonna say this is my proportion, but I'm gonna double check just to make sure. Sample of 400 high school students revealed that 176 of them have a Facebook account. StatCrunch generates a 95% confidence interval for the proportion. This is my proportion confidence interval. That was number 9. And number 10 is test the claim that food preference is independent of gender. Gender is written in the rows, food preferences in the columns. This is definitely a row versus column thing. And that is my chi-square, which looks more like a curly X squared. That's my problem 10. I've got them all identified. I know which one each one is. I've labeled it. I can just go through and solve them now. Does that make sense? All right, let's do that. Now that we've got them all identified, I've already done part of the work for every test. That's one of your jobs is the hypothesis test, is label them. And so we did that. Let's go through and do these questions. For the confidence interval ones, I wanted you to give me a statement of confidence. This one says 95% confident, so we are 95% confident that this problem is about mean, so this is about the true mean of, that the true mean talk time, I'm gonna take directly from a sentence, that the true mean talk time for, I'm gonna insert Motorola here, Motorola's B505 camera phone before the battery must be recharged. Okay, that's all just plagiarized. I just stole straight from the fucking rest of the sentence. Is between, the lower limit is the first one, 314.35. The mean talk time here is in minutes, and so is the standard deviation. That's our units, minutes. So the recharge time is between 314.35 minutes and my upper limit, which was 335.65 minutes. Okay, note the important things I'm looking for. You got the right percentage. I'm looking for that you identify that it's a mean or a proportion. I'm looking for that you know what the fuck we're talking about. That you don't just have some big shit in there. Like it needs to make a sentence. Like it should be like usable. And then I'm looking for your lower limit and upper limit and the units with them. Most of this shit I just copied directly from the question. Just takes a little creativity there. Everyone ready for number 2? All right, number 2. Get fucking ink all over my hand again. This is my 2 means test. So here I'm going to need to label some groups. So let me read the question. A researcher wants to show whether the acidity of rain in Houston is significantly different. So we're looking for not equals. So I'm just going to call Texas group 1 and Illinois group 2. When they're not equals, the number doesn't really matter as much. But I just got to label them. And so on my 2 mean test, H naught is mu1 minus mu2 equals 0. And since it says significantly different, it doesn't say greater than or less than. This is just going to be mu1 minus mu2 does not equal 0. If I skim through the problem, I see that I have a t-stat of 2.2676. I have a p-value of 0.0197. And I have an alpha of 0.05. That's my alpha. So we're comparing p-value and alpha. The first 2 digits are both 0. The second digit is 1 versus 5. 5 is larger. So my p-value is less than alpha. P-val too low, reject the hoe. support HA. So this one, support that. There is sufficient evidence to support the claim that, and I'm going to come up here and just plagiarize the shit out of this sentence. The acidity of rain near Houston, Texas is significantly different from that near Chicago, Illinois. That the acidity of rain, the pH, near Houston, Texas, is significantly different from that near Chicago, Illinois. And I'm going to add in that it was at the alpha equals 0.05 level of significance. Any questions? I'm looking for you to have identified the groups. I'm looking for H dot and HA, and it matching, these two should match and they should be accurate. I'm looking for this. If this matches this, I'm not looking anything else. If these two don't match, I'm looking for that. I want to see if you knew what was going on and if you just fucked up the sentence, the wording of the sentence. A lot of times the wording of the sentence is what throws off people the most, and this isn't a fucking grammar class. So if you're off a little bit in the words, but I think I knew what you meant, it's easier to see if you knew what was going on here if you list it all. Any questions? All right. Next problem. This is my ANOVA. My groups are all already labeled. ANOVA is mean 1 equals mean 2 equals mean 3. HA is at least one is different. At least one mean is different. I have an F stat. I'm just stripping out the information from there. The F stat says 11.09, that's good enough for me. 11.1, my p-value is listed in there. It's listed at 0.011. And my alpha is given as well. My alpha is given as 0.05. So I'm going to compare my p-value and alpha. My p-value is less than alpha. It's too low, reject the hoe, support HA. HA was that the means are different. At least one mean is different. There is sufficient information or evidence, sufficient evidence to support the claim that at least one group had a different mean I'm going to just say in the medical research. In the medical research here at alpha equals 0.05 level of significance. I did find out something good today. Found out this morning on accident. If I remove a question, even though when students have already done the work, or if anyone started an assignment, I can't like actually delete the question, but I can tell it remove the question, which keeps the question in there and gives students full credit. And when a student looks at it, it says, this question has been removed by the instructor, you get full credit. After I go through and do everyone's like midterm, like check for rounding and shit, I'm gonna go through the question for every fucking single question, every single assignment and go, should this be one I remove and get full credit on? So a lot of that homework shit, if you got through it, you're gonna see in some of these later chapters, there's shit in there like what type of case study was used here? Was it a cohort plan? Was it a paired, matched pairs design? I didn't cover any of that shit in chapter 1. It didn't seem relevant, especially for a short class like this. If there's a reason for it, I'm gonna give credit for it right away, okay? So that's gonna raise a lot of homework scores when I go through and do that. I'm not looking forward to doing that. There's like, the support problems I'm not worried about. I already looked through the questions in there and those are all valid. It's the ones for the major, like the Math 21 one. They get a little fucking carried away with bringing up old shit in this class. They're chapter 12 and they're talking about chapter 1 topics. Get out of here. All right, number 4. This is a one proportion test. I know my H naught is P equals something. And my HA is P, I don't know what here. So I gotta read. A simple random sample of 320 adults was asked their favorite ice cream flavor. Of the 320 adults surveyed, 58 responded that they preferred mint chip, chocolate chip. Test the claim that less than 25%. Less than is that symbol. 25% is 0.25. And finding out that allows me to fill in the rest of H naught. All right, so I got that. It gives me my Z-stat. I don't think in the official final, I say which type of stat it is. Like up here it said F-stat, and this one says Z-stat. I think I changed the word to say test stat, because like goodness of fit and chi-square test for independence both say chi-square. One of them is a chi-square for dependence, but we call it goodness of fit. It was misleading. And like ones that say T-stat, if you know T-stat goes with means, it told you what it was. And it wasn't, some students were just looking at that and guessing. And it was hurting them with the chi-square. Z-stat, negative 2.84. My p-value is given right there is 0.0023, and my alpha is 0.05. And so I do a comparison. My p-value is less than alpha. It's too low. Reject the hoe. Support HA. I hope I have one of these in the practice final that is not support. I have no idea. I wonder if they all say support. We're going to find out. So far, they've all said support, right? So we're supporting that. It's less than. There is sufficient evidence to support the claim that, and I always pause and I go up and look to see if I can jack shit from the sentence. That less than 25% of adults prefer mint chocolate chip ice cream. I do. I can just straight plagiarize the sentence. Less than 25% of adults prefer mint chocolate chip ice cream at alpha equals 0.05 level of significance. So far, they've all had alpha equals 0.05. Don't assume that. Make sure you read the problem. I'm certain, I'm confident that I went in there and changed some of that shit up. I'm sure I had some that like, I know I had to. I had to put like a 0.01, especially when like the p-value was like a 0.03 or some shit like that, where the 0.03 would be less than the 0.05. If you're not paying attention, you would just say it's less than, but the alpha is really lower. Just look for it. Be aware. Be alert. All right. My one mean test. H naught is mu equals. HA is mu something, and I don't know what. So we got to go through and look. According to the Insurance Information Institute, the mean expenditure for auto insurance in the United States was $774. That's the value that we're checking against. An insurance salesperson believes the mean expenditure for auto insurance is different now. Different now means it's not equal. Is there enough evidence to conclude that the mean expenditure for auto insurance is different from the 2002 amount? That looks like some shit I'm going to jack for my sentence. It looks like that's going to fit into a sentence good either way. Either there's sufficient evidence that the mean expenditure is, or that there isn't. It's going to look good. Oh, here we go. We got an alpha is 0.01. I got a t-stat of negative 4.8. And I got a p-value that is super low. So I looked at all this stuff. My p-value is less than 0.0001. We're comparing that to 0.01, which is alpha, and that's less than. This is again too low. Reject the hoe, reject the null, support HA. which means I'm supporting this. Support. There is sufficient evidence to support the claim that I'm stealing that sentence above. The mean expenditure for auto insurance is different from the 2002 amount. Oh, they even have the rest of the sentence has the alpha part. At the alpha equals 0.01 level of significance. Halfway done. You guys want a break? Okay. It's been an hour. All right. 5 left. Let's get it done. Goodness of fit. The goodness of fit, when you go through this, when you go through the lecture material and you're doing the homework, you will find that the goodness of fit is always H naught is observed values match expected. The observed values or frequency matches the, in this case, the national distribution. HA it doesn't match. The national distribution. At least one of them is off. At least one is off. So we're going to go through and look at our values. I got a chi-square value of 511.48 48. I've got a p-value that is less than 0.0001. I see that here. Alpha is given there. Alpha is 0.05, which is again, p-value is again less than alpha. We will reject H naught, support HA. HA is that it doesn't follow the national distribution. So we're answering this question right here. Does the distribution of weapon choice in robberies in schools follow the national distribution? No. There is sufficient evidence that the distribution of weapon choice in robberies in schools does not, I'm inserting that in there, that's not part of the sentence, does not follow the national distribution. at the alpha equals 0.05 level of significance. So this thing was right here was H naught. Normally what's listed is HA. This was listed as H naught, and so when we did HA, we had to throw in a naught in there. Any questions? Again, you'll get more experience with some of these weird ones. Chapter 12 and 13 are probably the ones I don't think any student has touched. Cody's usually the one that's got the most homework down. What chapter are you on, Cody?
9.
9. Oh, shit. Maybe Cody's not in the lead. Cody's fucking waiting till the end. He's riding his fucking coattail or laureates on fucking the midterm going, I kicked ass on the midterm, fuck this final. Don't do that.
I didn't mean to do that. I did the midterm and then I thought, oh, maybe we won't have work for a couple of days. I made the mistake of not checking.
You
Now I'm behind.
you have less work because you don't have any support work to do.
That's true.
What? The test is in 4 days.
So I have school and work all day.
That's why I make homework due on Sunday night.
We're doing homework all of Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And I even think, let me go look at homework. I think I made the due date for this final day. I made it due at noon on Monday. So it's not due Sunday night. It's like if you're a fool, if you're absolutely stupid, and I'm standing by this. If you're stupid enough to fucking stay up all night, July 31st, and like come to class for the final with no sleep because you waited till the last minute to do the homework, you're an idiot. Because your brain is running on fucking empty, and you're gonna walk into the final on empty whether you did your homework or not. Get some fucking sleep. Even if it's only 3 hours, but preferably get a full night's sleep. But just in case, I made the homework due at noon. This way, even my afternoon students have time. If you go to sleep early because you're like, I want to get a full night's sleep, you get a full night's sleep, you wake up 6 a.m., 7 a.m., something like that, you've still got a few hours that you can like go over some shit, do some last minute like homework if you need to, hopefully not. Because if you do, you're probably the practice final is going to be hard if you're still working on homework. But you have the time. As a reminder, the way the points are in this class, if you do 100% of all the homework, which no one has, you could literally get away with 50% on the midterm and 50% on the final and still get a C. The less homework you do, the higher scores you need on the exams. The higher you do on the exams, the less you need on the homework to get a C. Hopefully you're not aiming for a C. Hopefully every student aims for an A. That's the ideal. All right. Back to work. Number 7. This was my paired question. So an auto dealer decides, so there's two means here. Paired is a two mean thing. An auto dealer decides to enroll its salespeople in a training program to help increase sales. So we're looking for an increase. It's going up. Here are the sales for each salesperson in the month before the program and the month after the program. So I want to know, is the claim that the sales program effective in increasing sales? Which group should have larger numbers if the sales program is effective? After, right? You should be selling more shit after if it worked. So after should be greater than before. So we'll use that. I will make HA mu after minus mu before is greater than 0. Because if I subtract before from both sides, I get after minus before is greater than 0. And that means I can make H naught mu of after minus mu of before equals 0. You don't have to do the after and before. If you label them 1 and 2, let me do that in a different color. If you label this group 1 and you label this group 2, you could say mu1 minus mu2. And mu1 minus mu2 is greater than 0 if you do the labeling like that. If you do this, this helps you later on when you're doing the sentence. After is larger than before. All right, so it says at the 0.05 level, it doesn't say alpha, but that must be what it's talking about. That's got to be my alpha. So alpha is 0.05. My t-stat is listed at 2.45. And my p-value is 0.0221, which is also less than fucking alpha. Do I have any of these where it's higher? We're running out. Do I have any? No, I don't. Not one of these says insufficient. That's not a very good fucking practice exam, is it? But you'll have enough problems on the homework that have that shit. So we are rejecting H naught. We are supporting H8. And HA is that after was greater than before, which means that the claim that the sales program worked. There is sufficient evidence to support the claim and I'm flat out plagiarizing that line, that the sales program is effective in increasing sales. At alpha equals 0.05 level of significance. So far, they've all said sufficient. I looked ahead, it looks like the rest do too. Don't make that assumption on the test. Don't be stupid. Don't assume shit. Never assume shit. Your professor is a devious motherfucker. He's a tricky rabbit. You guys ready? Is there any questions on that one? All right. Two proportion tests. H naught is always, for a two proportion test, P1 minus P2 equals 0. HA is always going to have the P1 minus P2 something 0. The question is, what symbol am I using? It depends on how I label them. So let's read the description. Zoloft is a drug that used to treat OCD. In a randomized double-blind clinical trial, 926 patients diagnosed with OCD were divided into two groups. So we have an experimental group and we have a control group. Do a higher proportion of subjects experience dry mouth who are taking Zoloft versus the proportion taking a placebo. So it sounds like they want to know, is the experience group, does that have higher drive or higher proportion than the control group? Because the experimental group is the Zoloft group, the control group is the placebo group. And I'm going higher as in greater. So I'm going to call the experimental group 1. I'm going to call the control group 2, so that I can have the experimental minus control is greater than 0. I'll put that over here. This will be my greater than 0. I've labeled them here, so I know what P1 and P2 are, and this matches up with 1 and 2 over here, and matches up with that. So I've got my shit labeled. All right. I've got a Z-stat listed at 2.2. I've got a p-value of 0.0136 and an alpha of 0.05, which is less than, so we will reject H0 and support HA. Supporting HA is supporting that, which means that this sentence here is true. There is sufficient evidence to support the claim that a higher proportion I'm literally copying that sentence right now. Higher proportion of subjects experience dry mouth who are taking Zoloft versus the proportion taking the placebo. At alpha equals 0.05 level of significance. I think it's pretty important to note that some people write bigger than others. If you are one of those that write bigger than others and you feel like you don't have enough space, the back of each page is blank. But if you choose to write on the back of the test, for any question you write on the back of the page, write see backside on the question. That way I know to flip it over and look for more information. Okay? I don't know how big everyone writes, so like my brother fucking writes like he's fucking in kindergarten. Like big old, like he's using fucking chalk on the sidewalk. That he writes really goddamn big. He writes like I write when I'm doing like the stuff like this. I write big because I'm teaching and I want anybody in the back of the row to see it. He writes like that when he's fucking writing something down for himself. Like apparently he wants to be able to read it at fucking 50 paces. Some people do. Some people just write bigger. So if you need the bag, say see backside. If you don't say see backside, I might see it. I might see it when I turn the page, And if I do, I'll give you credit, but I'm still gonna mark you down for not writing C backside because I'm gonna be pissed. Well, not pissed. Pissed is a little excessive. I'm gonna be irritated is a better word. But I'll tell you right now, when I'm grading these, I do one page at a time. So like I will look at 7 and 8 for everybody, single person, just one side. And I'm not turning the page until I've gone through the entire stack. So I'm not flipping your page and seeing right away that it's written on the back. If you write on the back, let me know it's written on the back. And I'll flip it then. All right, we're almost done. This is our confidence interval for proportions. And it says 95% as well. That's good. Whatever it says, if it says 90, use 90. We are 95% confident. That the true proportion and I'm just pulling it right here, of all high school students who have Facebook accounts is between 0.3914 and 0.4886. Optionally, you can write this as a percentage between 39.14% and 48.86%. I will take either. We got one left. One left to rule them all. This is our chi-square problem. A random sample of 100 COS students produced the following results concerning food preferences. At the 0.05 level, test the claim that food preference is independent of gender. That's really H naught right there. This is H naught. In general, for chi-square, it's rows and columns are independent. In our particular problem right here, food preference is independent of gender. And HA, there is some form of dependence. For rows and columns. That's the general form for a chi-square. In our particular example here, food preference is dependent on gender. So that's my HA and that's my H naught. Now some of these, you can look at them and you should be able to look at it and some of them and go intuitive. I look at that and I see males are Italian 15, Chinese 18, 35 males like Mexican. So a lot males like Mexican more than Italian. And then I get to females, and it's the other way around. Females, 35 like Italian, 12 like Chinese, 10 like Mexican. It looks like females prefer Italian and men prefer Mexican foods, but we let the stats verify it. The stats say we have a chi-square value of 22.3. I have a p-value of less than 0.0001, and we are comparing that. There's my alpha, 0.05. It was listed also. And it's less than again. So we are rejecting H0 and supporting HA. And which is I have written out right there. So I can just like put that shit in. There is sufficient evidence to support the claim that, and I'm literally just writing my HAN now that I've got it worded the right way, food preference is dependent on gender. At alpha equals 0.05 level of significance. That shit totally tracks too. When we and my wife are discussing dinner, if we want to go out somewhere, like I fucking want tacos or some shit like that. And she like half the time would be like, I want to go to Olive Garden. All right. I like pasta, but I like fucking good, nice asada taco a hell of a lot better. Every once in a while, even a ground beef taco hits the spot. Usually I like the asada, a little cilantro, a little onion. That's it, folks. That's all 10 questions. If you do shit like this, you got 100%. Any questions? All right, you got till Monday. Well, you can come in when you want on Monday. If you decide to take the test in the afternoon, I hope not. I hope you come in and get it knocked out of the way. I am upstairs in the afternoon in room 223. You can, if you want to get it knocked out early, you're like, I'm fucking up. I know this shit. I don't want to like waste another minute. I'm here at 7 o'clock. So you can come in here and take the test at 7 o'clock. Have the entire day ahead of you, not waste even the morning. Be at Starbucks by fucking 9.